The volume is on. All right, so welcome to class. This is JIT 445 and 545. How many of you guys are undergrad and grad? Undergrad? Grad? Okay. All right. And then backgrounds. We talked a little bit already about yours. What's your background? Are you a JIT student?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I got my undergraduate degree and a first graduate degree in China.
Okay.
Yeah, my major undergraduate degree is print engineering, and
Okay.
the graduate degree is education technology.
Nice. All right. So don't judge my education technology too harshly. It's a work in progress. All right. So anybody that's online too, we're not going to introduce you because you're not logged on to Zoom right now, but you're watching this after the fact. That's okay. But we're going to get right into class and talk about a few things today and then just take some time to play with our cameras. Do you guys bring your cameras by chance? You don't have to get it out right now, but if you don't have it right now, that's okay too. I have extra cameras to play with, but we're just going to talk about a few things. So first off, like, what's the point of 360? Like, why bother with all this stuff and all the workflow and all the headaches for like a kind of a
Immersive experience.
immersive experiences? Yes, exactly. So what's the difference between sticking a camera like this or this, one of these things, in some place instead of a GoPro? I mean, this is a GoPro, but it's a different GoPro.
Eventually, you can see it all the way around.
Yeah, it lets the viewer look where they want to look. Really, that's what it is. And it puts the immersive focus on things is that the viewer, they get to be in the spot where the camera is. So there's a little lesson that you guys are going to do online later. And one of the things they talk about is placement for cameras. It's about like setting up your shots, blocking and things like that. And so when you think about where you're using a 360 camera, the example they use is a group of people having dinner. What happens when you put the camera in the middle of the table?
You're the food.
You're the food, exactly. Because that's where the food goes. So if you put the camera in that spot, that's the viewer's perspective. They're sitting where the food is. So if you want them to feel like they're a member of the dinner party, where would you put the camera?
Somebody would say.
Yeah, over one of the chairs, somewhere that somebody would normally sit, right? So that's kind of the thing to think about. And that's an example of how not to do it sometimes. But also that's what we want to think about is where you put the camera, that's where you put the viewer. So you see on YouTube things like examples of the cockpit of the Blue Angels jets. You know, they have some cool videos with a 360 camera in there. That's something that I'm never going to get to see in real life. So putting a camera in there gives me a chance to be in that spot and look around and kind of experience it, right? You probably see stuff like that all the time. Bobby's a pilot. So anyway, I just want to go through and show you some stuff and we'll talk about like what this stuff is and the pros and cons. This is my second 360 camera. I won't call it a camera, it's a camera rig. The first one was even worse, but you guys see that? I don't think it shows on the camera really well. But this is 6 GoPro Hero 4s in a cage, and it's got a little bit of circuitry inside that syncs them so they start and stop together. And that was it. And so you record, and then you take tweezers, literally tweezers, and pull out all the little SD cards, 6 of them. You download them all. If you don't put them all in the right folders, in the right order, nothing works. And then you go through a process to stitch it. So for a 2-minute recording, by the time you stitch it and correct it and everything, it's all manual. It took probably 2 days worth of work. So have you played with your guys' 360 cameras yet? Where you can shoot a 5.7K video on your phone and publish it within like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a big difference from this kind of stuff, right?
It worked.
It did work, yes, but it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I will never go back to it. This is not even included, like there's no batteries in here either. So you have to plug it into V-mount batteries and it was just a real hassle. But we did some cool stuff with it. We hooked it up to the marching band at one of the football games. We had, oh, somebody joining. Here we go. Hello. Audio's on. All right. Good morning. We're just going to keep going. It's recorded, so hopefully you won't miss anything. If you want to go back and watch, we haven't done much yet. All right. What was I saying? So we took this thing and we did all kinds of stuff. We actually clamped it onto Sparky's pitchfork at a game when he goes out on the field and stabs it in the ground. That was kind of terrifying because the clamp went burp. But the other camera, I think it was after this one actually, Google came out with a camera called the Odyssey. GoPro partnered with them and had the same thing. It had 16 of these Hero 4 GoPros in it, and it looked like a alien, saucer. It was a spaceship, and they all pointed in different directions. And that thing, it took 4 V-mount batteries in a little thing that was bigger than a car battery, and you had to run with it connected. And so same thing. I do a lot of stuff with athletics. So the football games, I took that to the games and lugging that thing around and trying to get it in places where you could see stuff that was interesting, was a challenge, but that was a little better because then we could take all 16 SD cards and still had to pull them all out and download all the footage from them. And that was massive because it's 3D 8K. So it's 2 8K feeds, left eye and right eye. And then the nice thing about that is we didn't have to stitch any of it. We would just upload it all to Google. Their servers would stitch it all and then download it again, which was, a lot, but it was way easier than doing it yourself. But they canceled that program eventually and moved on to other things. So then we went into, I don't even know where all my cameras are. Oh, this little guy right here. This probably looks a little bit more familiar to some of the things you have. This is a Ricoh Theta, but it's like an old one. It doesn't really do video. I mean, it did 1920 by 1080, so HD video, which sounds like pretty good resolution, right? Is that good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, right? But think about what is 360 video? How much of it do you actually see at one point in time?
Yes.
Just a tiny little bit. So that 1920 pixels, most of it's behind you. You're not looking at it. So all you ever see is like 240 pixels. So for video, this kind of thing was terrible. But we do a study abroad trip in GIT, and I took this with me and got a ton of 360 photos that are actually on Google Maps now. And so I get emails every couple of months from Google. It's like, you hit a new record. You have 7 million views on your picture, because that was early on before people were really doing this stuff. So, oh no, no, Google doesn't pay people. That's for sure. But if they actually, I did think I got some movie tickets out of it. They had a promo where you get, anyway. But then we move along into things like this. So then GoPro, they're like, nobody wants to do this anymore. So they came out with a camera called the Fusion. It's not this one, it's the one before. It's a little bigger. But in that case, you got 2 lenses. So the Fusion was kind of the first 2-lens action camera that had real functionality, because the Theta, that one was too little. This one is called the GoPro Max. It was one of the cameras on the list that if you're looking for a camera, it would work for this class. But you see those 2 lenses there, they're offset. Can you see that, how they're, top and bottom there? This really, it's just 2 GoPros stuck in a housing together, so it's not any different than the other GoPros, but it's got fisheye lenses. So each one of them can see around the body of the camera a little bit. So this
Single card, single back.
single card in here, yeah. So it became a little, actually, you know what, is it a single card? The Fusion, the older one, it took 2 cards still. It did, yeah. And this one has 1 card, 1 battery. So the process got easier and easier. Then Insta360 came out, which a lot of you guys have the X3, right? That's like the most user-friendly, easiest way to work a 360 video camera that's out there. I got this one just because it does a little bit higher resolution. This is the Insta360, I don't even know what it's called, R 1-inch something. I don't know. I just got it and I've only taken 1 picture on it so far. So I gotta figure this thing out too. The problem with getting all the cool tech is you never have time to play with it. But 360 has a lot of potential, I think. It's been out for a long time. Like 360 pictures and video have been out for quite a while. And how prevalent is it? Do you guys see 360 videos everywhere you go? People posting them on Instagram?
Yeah, YouTube.
Sometimes YouTube more common, right? But I would say for every one 360 video that's on YouTube, there's about 17 billion other videos, right? So there's not a lot out there. Why is that? Why do you think? Like what's keeping people from just going crazy with 360?
Leave the viewer experience. The hardware, and software's not there. Or like I was looking at VR videos on YouTube last night. You gotta scroll around.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a PS5 and I tried to put on my VR goggles on YouTube. It doesn't fit.
Oh, it doesn't work on there? Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, if you have a VR headset, there's a lot more functionality. Like you really kind of get the experience of watching a 360 video in a headset because you can look around. But if it doesn't even work on that kind of a device, which is probably one of the more common type of headsets that people are going to get,
Yeah.
you know, that's a big barrier to people really enjoying that content. So one thing to think about with this is that your audience is probably going to be kind of limited, right? If you're a you know an influencer trying to build a brand on YouTube and social media and stuff, is 360 really the way to go? Maybe if that's your target audience, if that's what you are specializing in, then sure. Uh, but I think it's probably more useful as just one tool in your toolkit. And so that's kind of how we're going to approach this class, is that we're not selling this whole technology thing as uh, the one thing that you're going to do. You know, it's probably, you guys have all taken like some sort of video class, or you've learned about doing video or photos somewhere else already, probably a little bit. So in that case, this is just another tool. So I was watching YouTube with my kids. They love to watch a channel called How Ridiculous. Have you seen them? It is just as the name implies. It's like these three Australian guys that are just the biggest goofs. Check them out. It's a fun way to kill some time, especially with little kids. And what they do, their whole channel started out as there's this tower, like a research tower in Australia somewhere where they live. And the point of it is they drop things off of it and test acceleration and stuff. So it's like a science thing with some university or whatever. They're like, let's go there and throw off watermelons and, you know, bowling balls and all kinds of stuff. That's their whole channel, is like breaking stuff. Anyway, I noticed they had some really interesting shots of stuff where the camera would fall with the stuff they were dropping. So you could see it falling. I'm like, that's pretty gutsy to chuck your camera off of this huge tower, and especially with stuff that's falling. And how do you think they did to do that? It might have something to do with this class if you're
It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
a 360 camera on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because one, how would you get the camera to track and focus something while it's falling? But a 360 camera, it's pointing everywhere all at once. So that part's easy.
Yeah.
They're pretty lightweight. So they took an Insta360 X2 and they hooked it up with a fishing line on a fishing pole. And they literally would just drop it. And then before it hit the ground, they would stop it. And then they could reel it back up. So they didn't trash the camera. It falls around right beside something that is going to get smashed. I think somebody's trying to get in that door. Let me go open it. Oh, you can come in this other door too. Coming in, sorry. No, you're good. Come on in. Sorry, we had this door open, but I didn't open the other one. All right, what was I saying? Anyway, so our approach in this class is, yeah, we're going to learn how to use 360 cameras to do purpose-built 360 immersive content, but we're also going to approach this as it's just one tool in your toolkit to where you can build other stuff. Like, for example, you were talking about putting a camera on a plane, right?
Yeah.
Now, how long is a flight typically?
An hour.
Do you want to watch an hour 360 video of a camera just mounted on the outside of a plane? The novelty is going to wear off pretty quick, right? It's going to get kind of boring unless it's just a beautiful landscape, but then nobody's going to want to look around or anything. So really it's about getting a shot
Yeah.
and then moving on, right? So think of this as a tool to do that kind of thing. All right. Now, oh, I forgot about this camera. I want to show this one off too. This just came in yesterday. So this part of the camera, does this look normal to you?
Yeah.
It is. This is just a Canon R5. It's the cinema one. So it's got a fan built in so it doesn't overheat. So it looks a little different back here. But this part is what's pretty different, right? Can you guys see that on the camera there? Yeah, that lens is probably a little different than most camera lenses that you're used to. So this has fisheye lenses, dual fisheye lenses. And what they do is they project a 180 field of view twice onto a single sensor. Does that make sense? What would the purpose of that be?
Um,
Exactly. It does 3D. There's a right eye and a left eye, just like we have, and the offset distance between that is the same. So when you watch this content in a headset, a VR headset, for example, it's going to look the same way it does to your natural vision. Now, there's been this kind of thing done a long time. Like the other camera, I'm going to get another camera out later, a big camera that we have, the Insta360 Pro 2. You can check that one out if you want, but that camera will do 3D VR. And it's got 6 lenses around it. And the same thing, by having one eye here and one eye here, or one lens here and one lens here, we can just watch one in one eye and one in the other eye, and it makes it 3D for us. It looks natural.
Have you watched it?
Oh yeah,
Does it look like through there?
looks, yeah, very much more so than just regular non-3D. So stereoscopic, that's a whole nother level for realism and immersion. The challenge with that in a lot of cases where I built another rig, like 3D printed a thing that would hold 2 GoPros side by side to do this kind of thing with 3D vision. The problem is the frames aren't synced up. So one frame hits and one frame records. Even just a 60th of a second different is going to make a big difference, and it's going to look unreal. It's going to make people get a little sick when they're watching it. The beauty of this thing, and I'm so excited to try it out after class today or during class today, we'll see, is that it's one lens and it's all going to one sensor. It's not 2 separate cameras. And so the single sensor has 2 images on it. So it's already starting out overcoming a lot of the challenges of other stuff. So anyways, there's lots of gear involved with this kind of stuff. And if you really want to get into 360, you'll end up spending all kinds of money on what I call a stupidity tax or learning tax. You buy something, you're like, this isn't really what I want. It's not doing what I need. And so you go buy the next thing when you could have just bought the nice thing first and you try to save a little money. That's, that always happens. But it can be an expensive, really hobby, or you can just stick with the camera. Like the X3 is a great camera and you can do a ton of stuff with it. So we're going to get into all that, but let me share my screen now. Let's go over to Canvas for a sec. And just take a look. So under modules, this is just, you guys can look at Canvas yourself, but I wanted to say it before I forget. All right, so just go through this stuff here. Slack is our primary thing we're going to use to communicate in this class. Until I decide it's not. The new update, I don't know if you guys saw, there's a new update that just came out in December, and everything is like messed up because I've been using Slack since it first came out for classes and everything. Thank you. Is it all done? Anyway, I've been using Slack the whole time, and since this update came out, it changed the way I have all my classes set up, so it's just been a headache. But for now, that's probably the easiest way to get hold of me. If you have a question about the class, there's a questions channel. That way everybody sees the same question, and you guys can answer people's questions too. If you have a question for me that's about something like, I'm going to be, I have a appointment and I can't come to class or whatever, then, that's the email kind of thing, or a direct message on Slack. You don't have to post that for the whole class. Announcements, that's the big one. So if for some reason like class gets canceled because they're going to be installing some more stuff in this room, so we might have to change our schedule or change our room one day, I'll let you know on Slack beforehand. I was going to let you know on Slack this morning, make sure you wear a coat, but I figured everybody would bring a coat anyway. So yeah, so that's probably the best way to get hold of me. The Zoom introductions thing here, if you're an in-person student, you don't really need to worry about that. You're just going to be coming into class. But for folks that are online, anybody watching this, make sure that you do this thing. It's just so that I can get to know who you are and who is in the class, and we can make sure that Zoom works for you, because that's how you're going to be consuming the class content. This little quiz here is probably the easiest thing you've ever done. It just says like, I'm not going to cheat on stuff, and I've read the syllabus, and it doesn't even ask you any questions about the syllabus. So pretty easy stuff. But module 1, this is where we're at today, actually. So this is how the course is going to be formatted mostly. It's going to have a section that says, do this before you come to class or before you watch the video. And then after class, this is what you're going to start on. So for example, like somebody did the discussion 1 already, And I'm not saying you're bad or anything, don't worry about it. But normally you would wait to discuss until we've had our like class and you've heard some of this stuff. So you're good there for this week, but normally like wait to start on this stuff. You can look ahead at it and see what's coming, of course. But you don't need to work on this stuff until after class. And then the due dates typically are going to be before the next class. So like Tuesday night by midnight. So everything is in before class. And then a lot of times we'll look at things in class together or on the recording on Zoom afterwards. All right. So in here, there's a little bit that just said there's going to be a section that just tells us kind of the overview of what we're doing this week. So you can skim that. And then this readings and viewings, sometimes there will be like reading assignments. Sometimes it can say, go find your own reading on this topic. And sometimes there will be like assignment kind of things. So this step here, I don't know why I'm having I see the mouse out of the corner of my eye on the screen. And I try to move it down to be on my screen because I'm used to, anyway. So this course is on a website called Coursera. I don't know if you heard of it. They're kind of like LinkedIn Learning or whatever, but this is Google's Daydream, which doesn't exist anymore. This is a product they don't have anymore, but it's still a good course. Remember the big 360 camera that I told you about? That rig, was based on people who use that. They had to take this course first. So anyway, you can enroll for free. Ignore the start date. That doesn't really matter. It starts every single day. It starts when you click start. So go ahead and do that. You can, if you really want to, I think you can pay to get a certificate that will show up on your LinkedIn profile. It's cheap, but don't worry about that. I mean, unless it's something you really want, you don't have to do it for this class. But do pay attention when you complete the course. There's going to be a course completion screen. You'll need to take a screenshot of that. To show that you've done it. Okay. So you don't have to pay for the certificate, but screenshot that you did it. All right. And that's going to cover just some basic things on VR production, which is different than regular video production. Have you guys done video production? Like what kind of things have you done? Projects, just class projects, right?
Last semester,
Classes. Okay. Anybody have a YouTube channel of their own?
I collaborated on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
We also did productions. Yeah, like
Nice.
4 years.
Okay. Cool. So you have an understanding of what goes into traditional video production, right? Everybody from your class projects to other things. This is going to be a little bit different. And more so, I think, in the planning stage. Regular production, like it's going to turn out better with planning, right? You just go out with the camera, you're going to get what you get. But production is only as good as the pre-production, right? So this course is going to talk, not the class, but this under step 2, this course is going to talk about pre-production a lot and planning and thinking about how to make a VR shot that's going to be engaging and immersive, that's not going to make people feel like they're the food, and that's not going to make people get sick. If you're watching VR content on your phone, if you guys watch any VR videos on your phone, that's probably better than watching it on a screen or where it doesn't work in your VR headset. Because you can just move it around, right? You just point. And it's like your camera is working, but it's pointing at the video that's playing. So thinking about how people are going to consume your video is a big thing. If they're watching that way and the camera moves around, it's not that big of a deal, right? Because people are looking at this little bitty screen, they're not going to get motion sickness. But, and I've learned this from experience, if you're in a VR headset and the camera moves, but your body doesn't move, what happens?
Disoriented.
You get disoriented and you really will get motion sickness. Like I may bring in the headset and have you guys try out some videos that will make you get green around the gills a little bit just to see. But it's something to think about is that's something you need to decide before you even get to the place where you're going to be recording is how is it going to be consumed? And so watch the videos there in step 2. I kind of
Broke it into 4 weeks, so should we take 4 weeks to finish it, or should we try to get it done as soon as possible?
Yeah, this is all just week 1. Yeah, so normally, because this is our first week and we hadn't met yet, don't worry about it, but this was in the section of due before Wednesday. So normally the readings and viewings, you'll do that before you come to class. And it's set up, it's not that long. Like this production course, it says it takes 4 weeks. I did it in like an hour. It's made to spread out if you want to, but you can do it pretty quick. All right, so go through this other stuff too. The top one I forgot to mention, Frame.io. Have you guys used that before? You like it? Yes? Okay. People that actually use it love it. People that haven't used it before, they get in and like, what do I even do here? So what it is, it's a private video sharing and feedback and review and critique kind of platform. If you have an Adobe Creative Cloud account, it comes with it now because they bought Frame for like $7 billion or something. Probably not that much, but a lot. Anyway, if you are a editor, let's say you're a video editor, that's your job. You edit a video and you need to say, I've got all these stakeholders that need to sign off on it. How do you send it to them? Put it on Dropbox and send them a big video file, put it on YouTube, private link. And how do you do it? Well, there's ways, but Frame is like the solution to all that. What you do is in Premiere Pro or your editing software, you just go into the Frame panel, you open that up, upload it to Frame, and then it gives you a link and you can send that link to people. It opens up in a private, you can password protect it, you can watermark it, whatever. And then the people, they can go in there and they can add comments with timestamps. They can annotate, they can draw on the video and highlight things and color code it. And you can share it with lots of different people and teams. And then you just open up Premiere Pro again. And on your timeline, there's markers with the feedback and stuff. So it really simplifies that whole process. Now, the downside of that is that for all its strengths, it doesn't do 360 video. We're going to use it anyways for several reasons, which we may get into later, but it's a good tool for review, critique, feedback, collaboration, working with a team. And so get in there, click on the links in there, and you can learn about how Frame.io works. You do need to install the Frame plugin in Premiere Pro, which will be covered in there, or we'll cover it later. You don't need to have it set up this week or even next week. It'll be a little bit before you get into using it. But we are going to be doing critiques and sharing our content through there. We're going to upload to YouTube. We're going to upload to Vimeo. We're going to upload to social media because we're going to go through all the different ways that you can use this kind of stuff, right? What we're not going to upload to very often is Canvas. So anyway, there's that. Step 3 is, figure out your own camera. In the past, we had much more, like there wasn't a list of cameras. It was just like, figure out what you can find and get something. And so we had a lot of variety in the cameras that were out there. But still, everybody's going to have a slightly different approach. You had different hardware. You may have a different phone, and that can affect, even with the same camera, how things look. So step 3 is figure out your own camera a little bit. I don't expect you to be an expert on it by next week, but you should know how to change the settings, go to manual, go to auto, how to export stuff, how to edit on your phone, how to bring it to the computer. We'll get into like editing on the computer and stuff later on, but get started. And then step 4 is just some kind of curated things, comparing content. And this one right here is actually about this camera. So just, those are just some things to check out. And then I highly recommend that you spend some time on YouTube. Just find some stuff about your camera and then go try it out. Try it out. Because there's no textbook for this. I've looked. There's no textbook for any of this stuff. So our textbook is mostly YouTube University. All right, so then let's go on here. Next up is the discussion, which you'll do. It's simple stuff. These discussion boards we'll have occasionally on Canvas as just a way to kind of bring in and get everybody talking about the same thing at once, because some people will join in person and we'll have conversations in class, those that are here. If you're on Zoom Live, Ben, feel free to chime in anytime. Can you hear us still?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay, I was like, he's probably sleeping with the
No.
I'm just kidding. So anyways, yeah, we'll talk about stuff, but the discussion boards are kind of more formalized thing. To be honest, ASU just said you have to have some discussion boards in here. All right, so then this essay, it's called an essay, but this is pretty simple. Like, don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be super long. 800 words. Sounds like maybe a lot, but it's really not very much. Like you write that much on 3 of your Instagram post captions. So it's not too much, but it does need to be properly cited in APA formats. I think by this point, everybody's done this kind of stuff in other classes before, so I don't have a lot of instructions on that, but if you need some help, let me know. The rubric's there and stuff, but it is identify and consider 3 examples of 360 video for enterprise. So we've talked about YouTube videos and entertainment content and stuff like that, but I think that one of the big drivers are the big markets, industries that 360 has potential for and is being used a little more for is enterprise. So what do you guys think? Can you think of any examples where that's the case? And you're going to look into it before you write this, but just off the top of your heads.
I think it's more like what you were saying, they use a 360 or 360 camera to look at all angles and pick the angle you want to show.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that there's very many enterprise truly 360 video immersive experience stuff. Are there?
There are actually. There are. Yeah. Okay. So there's some big players actually. Walmart, for example. They have a lot of employees. You can imagine, right? Now, let's say a new employee, some person just starting their first job ever, and they're going to work in the store stocking shelves. And they may occasionally run into a customer who is irate. How do you train 7,000 people a week on dealing with an irate customer?
360?
Yeah, you don't have to bring it. You don't have to fake these scenarios. You don't have to role play anything. You just put a headset on them and they go through and they watch a video. And have you guys ever seen the Choose Your Own Adventure books like when you were a kid? So you can do that with VR video too. So in a headset, you know, they're sitting there watching a video in a headset where they're stocking the shelf, you know, and some person comes up and they're like, I can't find the green beans, you know? And so the video pauses and there's a thing that says, look here to say this, or look here to say, it's like the video game, like working with an NPC. You're having a, you know, click A to say, I don't know. Click B to say, well, let me help you, you know? And so they can put every single employee through this consistent experience. Okay. That's one. Airlines are using this like crazy, like situations dealing with passengers on an airplane or safety protocols or procedures. Throw it in a VR headset, let them watch this thing. Everybody gets trained the same way. You know, it's consistent. Even pilots. How many instruments are there in a commercial airliner? All the gauges, all the buttons and stuff, right? So I have to tell dad jokes every once in a while. So a pilot sitting there, first day on the job, looks at the thing and says, what's all these buttons for? And the co-pilot says, those are holding your shirt closed. These buttons. Anyway, so yeah, sorry. They're usually pretty bad. But anyway, that kind of thing, that giving people a chance to see stuff in a low pressure environment, low stakes environment, is helpful. Construction, nuclear power plants, you know, what to do in the case of an alarm, you know, how do you stage that? You know, but in a VR situation, VR video, you can stage that, you know, at least once, and then you can train everybody on it the same way and they all get the same experience. So for enterprise, there's a lot of things and a lot of it is educational, I think. But you're going to have to figure out some more examples on your own too. So look into it. Let's go on a little bit. I think that's probably about it for this week. Yeah. Oh, this last one. Here's 3 examples of some, I won't tell you which one is good and which one is bad. Just 3 examples of some 360 videos that have been done by big people. So Mission Impossible, the movie, like they have a pretty big budget, right? And you'd think their production value is pretty high and they would know what they're doing with storytelling and stuff, right? And maybe they do. I'm not going to say right now. And then Free Solo is just some dude in a van that goes and climbs mountains and stuff. So maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. And then the Royal Air Force Police, you know, you think they're going to have good production quality on 360 video? I don't know. Watch them and see, but you're going to look at those and think about these kind of questions, like what did they do that works well? What makes this a compelling experience or engaging or really immersive? Would it have been better if they did this content as a traditional video instead of 360? So think about those kind of things and this part, like, did any part of it make you feel sick? If you watch this on your phone, you're gonna have a much different experience than if you watch it on your screen, or if you put it on your TV. I don't know if you have a way on your TV to zoom around, probably not. So check it out. And then you're gonna just write up kind of your thoughts on those things. actually, sorry, I do this all the time. Forget that I changed assignments. We're gonna do most of our stuff in here, not as writing assignments, but as short little videos. Because it's a video class and even though recording your stuff as a regular video with a webcam or even with your cell phone, selfie mode, is going to be closer to working with our 360 video and just getting everybody comfortable with using Premiere Pro or Final Cut or whatever you're going to use for this. So a lot of our stuff is going to be videos. Plus, it gets really old reading papers, and I'd rather just listen to you guys talking. So that's how that's going to work. All right, is that it? Yeah, that's it for module 1. And that's just kind of how the course is going to work. Jumping ahead, so you see what's in there. Same thing, complete before Wednesday. There's a reading, there's an intro, there's going to be, each week I'll post the recordings from Zoom later today. So once I edit out all the uhs and stuff like that, I'll upload that and then put a link in there. So you guys can go back and watch this, or you guys that are online, you will be seeing it already and it'll look amazing because you won't have to hear the boring stuff. All right, and then the assignments and the projects that are going to come up there. There's a couple of quizzes in here, mainly just simple stuff to check that you're following along. After this week, we're really going to get in and start using our camera. So this week is on your own, just kind of figure out how to use your own device a little bit. And then we're going to have like focused tasks that we're going to do. Like this week is really, not this week, but next week is going to be more about taking pictures, still photos with your 360 camera. How, why, how to get the best results. You're going to do a series of tests with your device to see how it performs in different conditions. And so you'll get to know your own device pretty well and be able to understand how to shoot something so that if you're approached by a client, let's say, you can say, yeah, I can do that, or no, I can't, or I can, but as long as you're okay with the quality not being great, my device has limitations, you know what those are. More often than you'd think, if you start to post this kind of content, people will approach you because it's small. I just got an email from an agency who found my Google Street View photos and said, can you do a 360 tour of Phillips Law Group headquarters and their different offices here in the Valley? I was like, no, I don't have time for that. But I get emails all the time because I've done a few projects for a friend who has a hearing aid clinic, and it has 70,000 views in 6 months. I'm like, why? This is boring. But I get emails from that. So a laundromat was like, hey, we'll pay you $1,000 to come take pictures of our laundromat. I'm like, all right, that'll take me 15 minutes. I'll do it. So you'll get stuff, but if you don't know what you're doing with your stuff, like you'll miss those opportunities. And $1,000 for 15 minutes, like who wouldn't take that, right? It was a next door practically. So anyway, there's potential for all kinds of things. And we're going to get into some of those little things where if you do want to make money with your camera, doing virtual tours, Street View, stuff like that, like you can do some really easy stuff and pay off your camera at least really quick. So we'll talk about different things as we go, but that's kind of the format for the class. Pretty straightforward. This is, even though it's in person, like if you're an in-person student, you're used to a full semester, right? But this is an A session class. So we only go until spring break and then it's over. So it's going to be more accelerated than you might be used to if you're in person. But it's still totally manageable. Like this is not research methods or something. This is go play with cool camera stuff. So I think it should be manageable for everybody. But if you get overloaded, if you get stuck or whatever, get in touch. Okay. So now I think what we want to do is probably, sorry, Ben, pause the video, stop the recording. And here we're going to play with our cameras a little bit and get them out and just kind of do some show and tell and see what we have and make sure everybody's ready to go. So I won't keep recording for this, but if you're watching the recording, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching and be sure and like and subscribe. Just kidding. All right.